guys, welcome back. I did a series a while ago on the skinning process or encapsulation process, however you want to say it. Anyway, we're going to reintroduce that. I'm going to combine all the videos into one here. So please enjoy, comment on the things you see, and I will interject when I can on things that I have changed. So please enjoy the video, and we'll see you at the end.
Hey everybody, we're gonna start a video series on skinning 3D parts for our Aventador lookalike project. This is actually a part that we 3D printed in sections. You can see one of the parts over here. You can see the glue lines. So all of those were printed in sections, and then they were butt glued together. And we used this epoxy, which works really well. And it's
so one thing I want to add here. I used to use PLA. I don't anymore because of the glass temperature is pretty low. It's around 55 centigrade. I've since then switched to ASA, which is a derivative of ABS. And ASA, and the big difference is that it's UV stable. And so the glue that I actually use to put the panels together is just standard ABS glue. So wanted to interject that because that stuff is much cheaper.
not cheap. So it's about 25 bucks for 50 milliliters. But it holds parts together much better than, say, cyanoacrylate or super glue. So anyway, what we do is we glue the parts together, we get them to fit on the vehicle, and kind of line them up with the panels that we've already done. The rear fascia is actually the kind of master panel that we line everything else to. And you can also see that sometimes you get a little bit of gapping. We're going to have to take care of that with some shims and whatnot. This was the largest piece we did, which is the engine cover. It turned out pretty good, didn't warp too bad. So once you get the parts glued together, you can see this kind of greenish stuff on here, and that is the Duraglass, which is a fiberglass filled filler. Gives it a little bit more strength for the bagging process. And basically you slather it on, and what you want to do is you want to sand most of it off. I've been using air tools, so these are 80 grit sanding discs, and this is just a cheap Husky tool you can get from Home Depot. But you can do it with many other types of sanding. You know, you can do it all by hand if you want to take a while. But anyway, so we smooth it all out. It doesn't need to be really finished like you were going to paint it. So what you don't want is you don't want lines to show through. Okay, so these bond lines, you can see them here, but you can't feel them, and that's kind of what you want before you go to the skinning process. And so the next video will be showing you some of the tools that we're going to be using for skinning this part. It's going to be a long and involved process for a part this large, and there's a lot of little tips and tricks I do hope to show you as we move forward skinning this particular part. So stay tuned. Part 2 is coming up soon, where we will start the carbon fiber process and go over some of the equipment that you're going to need to do this type of skinning. Thanks for watching. Okay everybody, this is going to be part 2 of doing 3D printed body panels and then skinning or encapsulating them in carbon fiber. I'm going to go over some of the tools or some of the equipment that you will need to do this. So let's talk about that now. First of all, you'll need a 3D printed part. This one has been glued together. You saw in part 1 how you finish those parts with some Duraglass, and then you sand them smooth. Again, it doesn't need to be smooth enough for paint, but the smoother you get it, the better the results. So let's talk about some of the equipment. We'll start over here. First of all, you're going to need some carbon fiber mat. This is mat I get where I get most of my supplies, which is Composite Envisions. And they have various different types of mat and different styles. You can get some that are actually have some blue Kevlar in them, which is really nice because it kind of glints in the sunlight. So some accent pieces are going to be done in this material. They also have different types of material. There's the regular type, which you can see frays really well, or badly as the case may be. And then this is their web lock, which actually does not fray as much. And so you want to use this when you're tucking in corners and things like that nature, and you don't want all of these stranding falling all over the place. But this stuff is 35 bucks a yard. This stuff is about 19 bucks a yard, so bear that in mind. You'll then need some 3M Super 77 adhesive spray. I get this at Home Depot. Pretty easy, cheap stuff to get. 3/8 tubing. I also get this at Home Depot. You'll need some scissors, maybe some clamps. You'll need the sticky bagging tape that they have. This yellow stuff, it's really nice. You'll need a catch can that has a readout for the vacuum. And you want to hold a vacuum that's going to be down close to minus 30 inches of mercury. So we'll talk about that in part 3. You need a vacuum pump. You don't need anything special. This is a single stage I've been using for most of the builds. And as long as you pull a good vacuum, this pump will do you quite well. Then you need some cups, like the paint cups for doing the mixing of the epoxy resin. Again, here's the epoxy resin I use. This is great stuff. I've used gallons and gallons of it with very good results. And make sure you use epoxy. I've tried using polyester resins, and they just aren't strong enough for doing these panels. They actually will peel away from the 3D printed part. You also need some hose clamps. These are things that'll cut the hose off and stop the flow of either vacuum or epoxy resin. And then you'll need a hardener. So you get the 1171 and the 1172. These are really good epoxy resins that I use. Then you'll need a couple other things. You'll need this peel ply, which basically is a fabric that releases from the epoxy once your mold is, or you're done infusing and the part has cured. This here is a vacuum bag material. It's really good stuff. Comes in a single sheet that's about 60 inches long, and you use that yellow tape I showed you in order to seal it up. And then you'll need this. This is flow media. So this allows the epoxy to flow over the entire part and saturate the part properly. And I might add that this is the best epoxy because it's infusion epoxy. You can't use epoxy such as this. So don't use this for doing infusion. It will not wet the carbon fiber. This I actually use after the part has been done. I use this to coat the part and give it a nice sheen, and I'm currently sanding this part down, and then we'll give it multiple layers of the thick epoxy and then polish it up, and it'll look real nice. This is actually a side view mirror that I'm doing, and this is the post for that side view mirror. So they look a little rough right now, but they will turn out quite nice when I'm done. So anyway, that's all I've got for part 2. Stay tuned for part 3, where we're actually going to start doing the skinning process with these tools. Thanks for watching. To part 3, which is we're going to skin this in carbon fiber or encapsulate it. We've got some cleaner here. This is a wax degreaser, just to get the surface nice and clean so that we get a good adhesion between the part and the carbon fiber. So we're going to go ahead and wipe this down, and then we'll get started laying carbon fiber. So what Jason's doing right now is he's flowing out the residual paper towel and stuff like that and drying it off. Okay, so we're going to need some tools. We talked about this in part 2, but we'll get a little more detail here. Gloves, always a good idea. Definitely need a dust mask because that stuff throws off a lot of fibers. Also do it in a well-ventilated area like we're doing outside. You need your spray adhesive, your scissors. I usually have a file because the carbon fiber is pretty tough on the scissors, so sometimes I have to file those down and sharpen them up. And then what we're going to do is never throw out your remnants. Always keep them in a pile like this, because this is actually what's going to add the strength to the inside. Because we're going to do a lot of overlapping of the weaves. And then we have our nice straight stuff, which will be the beauty layer on the outside. So let's get started. Okay, so now we're going to take our spray adhesive. We're going to coat the inside. Don't get crazy with this stuff. You just need a light coat because we just need to stick the carbon fiber to the inside. So go ahead and do all of the inside, and then we'll start laying our carbon fiber. Now sometimes you'll see some bubbles coming off and landing on the part. On the front surface, we're going to want to take care of that, and that's coming from the tip building up with adhesive, but on the inside it really doesn't matter that much. So some of the carbon fiber will come like this with a little bit of tape on it. You don't want to put that on your part. It makes a weak point, so go ahead and snip that off. And then just pick a starting point. I'll start up here. And there's no real science to this. You just want to lay it down, spread it nice and even, and then you go get your second piece. This. Somewhere goes nicely. So this is kind of like doing a puzzle. Don't worry about little warps and stuff like this, because this is the back side. When we get to the front side, you'll see that we take a little more care into these and just lay it down. Now when you have little problems like this where it's stretched, you want to cut it so that it lays down. Okay. And then you want to cut it about 1 centimeter from the edge, because when we do the front side, we're going to overlap it, and that'll make a nice strong part. So now when we're overlapping some of that, what we want to do, we want to have our spray adhesive and just cover that really lightly so that it does adhere. Lay that piece in. The object is to try to get it nice and flat. Now the vacuum bag's going to take care of any real low areas, so it's not too critical. Lots of strap over here. And the idea is you just keep doing this. So we'll just keep doing this, and you're going to want to do 2 layers of this on the back side. Or 3, depending upon this, how much strength you want in your part. forget to wear your dust mask. Again, you don't have to be too fussy about this.
I hit stop on that.
So here's a couple of layers of this stuff, and yes, it looks like crap, but that's okay. Once this gets infused and vacuum bagged, it'll all compress nicely, and it'll be strong, strong, strong. And just to show you what that looks like, here's the quarter panel. You can really hear how strong that is. It's just amazingly tough and light. Okay, so now we've got the inside done, and we're going to start doing the outside. And this is a more important part because this is the part that you're going to see. So we've sprayed it down with spray adhesive, and then we're going to start rolling out the carbon fiber on top. So now we've laid this on top, and we're going to start from the middle and start smoothing it out as we go, trying to avoid any big bubbles or poles or anything. Now remember, we got another layer going over the top of this, so this one doesn't have to be totally perfect. So here we go. We've got layer number 1 on. This one we don't have to be as fussy about. We'll put layer 2 on. We'll be a little bit better about it. But then these little areas down here, we're going to actually put in panels to make them nice and clean looking. You can see how it's kind of chopped up here, but we'll put in a single panel. We'll cut around the corners, and then once it's in the bag and infused, they'll disappear. So anyway, let me show you a good example of that. It'll be on this hood, where we did separate panels, and you can see that it just looks nice and uniform. So anyway, just a little note or a tip on when you're doing these things. And now we're getting ready for the last layer.
So the real big change in doing this was I could make panels by putting some of the fiberglass veil on the back, and I showed you in a couple other videos, but you get this fiberglass veil and you can spray adhesive it onto the back of the carbon fiber, and then you can cut it and get relatively good edges, and it's much better when you're doing these little panels that you want to show a specific leaf direction or whatever, if you want to do the herringbone design. So that's a little bit different from what you see in this older video.
Thing to put on is the peel ply, which you can see we've done here. It doesn't have to be particularly that neat in the back, but make sure that you get any cavities like this pushed down as far as you can, because this stuff, once it's under vacuum, can basically crush the part or pull it apart. I like to make it nice and smooth on the front. That way you have fewer ripples in the epoxy layers. And feel free to use don't go crazy with the tape, but it's there to keep everything kind of flat. So that we put on the next step, which is the flow media, which is what we'll be doing next. Okay, so we've kind of skipped ahead a little bit. We put the green media flow in here. So we just basically taped it in, wrapped it nice and loose around the entire part. And then we went ahead and made our bag, which is pretty simple. You use this orange tape. It's really sticky and tacky. And what you want to do is you want to really kind of rub it down and make sure that you get all of any bubbles or warbles out of it as you're making your bag. So, and then we put the bag around, and we now have our pump hooked up, and it is pulling out most of the air. It's going to take some time because this is a big bag, and we had a very small orifice in which we're sucking the air out from. So anyway, we'll show you when it actually goes down under vacuum. You'll see it suck in. The biggest thing to note is you want to make sure that your bag is nice and loose everywhere, because if it isn't and you're actually having parts where the bag is stretching across, it will actually crush the part. So you have to be really careful of that. Get it in all the little crevices. Make sure it's going around all of the pieces, or else it'll pull the pieces together, and that's not something you want to happen. So as it's pulling in a vacuum, just make sure it's getting in all the places and that it's not pulling on the part any. And then if it does, let some of the air in and re-pull the vacuum again, making sure that you can get all of the crevices and everything, so that this thing can really push down on the carbon fiber when you go through the infusion process. So we'll get back when we actually have it under vacuum, and then we'll start talking about how we're going to do the infusing. So one of the things that you need to do is you need to use this special tube, which is kind of cut in a spiral, and that allows the epoxy to leak out all along this tube. And what you do is you tape it to your part like this, and then you wrap in the 3/8 tubing, which is this tubing here. You wrap that in, and then you clamp it off. And make sure you clamp it off, otherwise you're going to be trying to pull a vacuum on your part and it's not going to work. And then you want that tube to go about halfway up your part, where the fluid is going to start going in to do the infusion. So the fluid will come up this tube, and it'll go in, and then it'll start spreading through this tube, and it'll spread down the part. So, and it's pretty important to placement. What we did was we placed our vacuum in the middle of the part, and then we have two places where we have on each end where we're going to inject resin, so everything will go towards the middle. So so next thing is we'll show you when the bag gets vacuumed. Now we're under vacuum. You can see as it's gone under vacuum, we've tried to push in some of the little areas that potentially might be a problem or pool with epoxy, because you don't want that happening.
This is a much bigger problem than I emphasize here. Getting the vacuum bag and all the materials kind of stuffed into those voids can be difficult, and so the best thing to do is to, when you're 3D printing, have a good amount of basically infill there, maybe 50% or better, or to avoid any of those areas at all. So bear that in mind when you're going, when you're designing your part, that these types of things are going to be an issue. Let's get back to it.
You can see that the part is nicely squeezed, which is what we're looking for here. And then what we're shooting for is about minus 28 to 29 inches of mercury. That should be a pretty good vacuum on a part this big. So the next step is to start mixing up epoxy and infusing the part. Mixing up our epoxy. So we're going to start with about 800 grams on each side to feed in, and then we're just going to continue to mix small batches around 500 grams each and pour them into the cups until the part is completely infused. It is really important that you don't let any air get into the system, and make sure you do measuring by weight on your epoxies, because you got to get the ratio right or the epoxy won't cure properly. So now we've got our epoxy mixed up, and you can see it starting to do the infusion process where it's all moving towards where the vacuum is. So we're going to have to start mixing up and pouring in more and more epoxy until the whole thing is saturated. And here we are with most of the part saturated, so we got a little bit more to go. We want to keep the flow of epoxy going on one side. The other side we can probably kill the flow, just so that we don't waste too much epoxy, because it's pretty expensive stuff. So anyway, next time is we'll wait for it to cure, and then we'll pull it out of the bag. Okay, so in the next part here, we're going to actually take the part out of the bag. So this is takes a while, so you know, a part this big, you know, set yourself aside a couple hours for pulling this out of the bag. But I'll show you steps along the way. Some simple tools you'll need: gloves. I like channel lock pliers, but other pliers can work. You'll see why the channel locks are something I like. A sharp flat head screwdriver, and then a very sharp fresh blade in your utility knife. So, and then you'll need a garbage can or some receptacle for all of the stuff. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the bag off, which is the pink looking material. And the easiest way to do that is just to start cutting and pulling it off. Tip when pulling this stuff off, I like to pull it off at one side and then the other, but sometimes the bag sticks pretty good to the part, so just make sure you give it sharp jerks, and that will help get it from the bag. Just like that. Feel yourself trying to get all of the bag off. You're going to have little remnants here and there. Not a big deal. It's just nice to have it out of the way for the next step. Now, the next step has to do with this guy and this guy, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to go to the inside of our part, and we're going to make a little incision right here. And you're going to start to see some of this material way, and it's good to start on an edge and just kind of scratch it until you see that white. And what that is that's the peel ply. So then you can take our screwdriver, try to get it in there, put your finger on the top, press down, and you're going to want to start working this until you get kind of a working area here where you can see it's all white, and I can start peeling that off. Now that's your starting point, and that's where you're going to start to peel back the peel ply and peel it off the part. Now what I like to do is I like to peel it all off the back as much as I possibly can, relieve it from the front, and then what I'll do is I'll pull the front off all in one piece. We'll see how that goes with this big part, but that's how you get started. So now you can see we're peeling back the peel ply, and you can actually see the carbon fiber. Don't worry about those scratches. Those are from the screwdriver and the X-Acto knife. But those will come out when you actually coat the part with some epoxy resin afterwards, and you'll get a nice glossy finish. And this surface is sandable. The only issue is that if you start getting black, that's bad because you're starting to cut into the carbon fiber. And this layer of epoxy is actually quite thin, so you want to be really careful with it. Now what I'll do is I'll actually start peeling this back with these pliers, and that's why I like the channel locks, because what I can do, let's see if I can do this one-handed, I can peel it back like that, and you can see how it's kind of pulling up. And then what I'll do when that pulls up is I'll cut that with the X-Acto knife, and I'll just keep running it down like I did here. And you just want to peel that thing all the way back. Now when you get a significant chunk of it peeled back, you'll want to cut it off here. And that's so that you can get these guys back in here and start the peeling process again. Just like that. And keep cutting and just keep going along until you've got most of the part. And then we'll, the other thing we'll do is we'll pull back these edges from the part. And we'll do that with the little screwdriver here. Let's see if I can get that in there. Peel back these parts. And then take our pliers, we'll grab it like this, and we'll peel it back around the other side. And just keep moving down doing that so that you can get the...
So on these parts, just want to interject, I used way too much epoxy. So that's why I had a problem really tugging off of this peel ply. So try to make it so that you get it just wet out, and then you want to turn everything off. And I know it might be a little dicey because you haven't seen all the epoxy get to the vacuum area, but trust me, it'll get there. So as long as you have a good vacuum seal, it'll get there. So try not to use too much because that's the problem here. Anyway, let's get back to it.
Peel ply around the corner. Okay. So here's the part out of the bag. I still have some pieces to take off, but most of them are, you know, in these little areas. And you just got to slowly kind of chip those out. But mostly the carbon fiber comes out nice. You see a few little scratches here and there, but that's not a big deal. Those can be sanded out. And there you go. You have yourself a piece. There's a little bit of distortion on this piece, but nothing that can't be handled by the way we mount it. And then the next thing will be to gap everything, and then we'll get it prepared for paint. So thanks for watching this series. If you have any questions, go ahead and post it. We'll go over some other types of parts and things that we do on this particular project, and hopefully make some more videos. Thanks again.
Thanks again, guys, for sticking around to the end. Anyway, I hope you found this useful. Please like and subscribe. There's going to be a little bit, you know, some tweaks to this process when it comes to the McLaren. So watch for those in future videos where we'll kind of talk about the different ways that we're going about it and the improvements that we're making. So again, hope you liked it. Please comment down below, and see you next time.